Catch power interviews and discussions with influential, inspiring, and powerful people. Explore what's possible by tuning into this podcast with our all-new The Writers Project episodes, featuring one of the world's most inspired thinkers and writers. Visit our website at www.globalsummithouse.com.
For this radio interview here. Thanks for joining us today. We have got historian Jerry Rhodes going to join us here in just a few moments, and I believe Dan Perkins and IQ Rizzoli are back with us.
Yes, we
are. And Jerry, go ahead and give us a brief introduction on yourself, my friend, and talk to us a little bit about your books and everything else. Jerry, can you hear us? Give us an introduction here.
Yeah, you're cutting out, but you're asking about my software product?
Tell us about your books and everything, my friend, because our co-hosts want to talk to you about your books, but we need to know about them, Jerry, so tell us all about your books.
Yeah, well, last time I was talking about the debt clock.
Yes, tell us about that.
Federal government is cooking the books and not recording all their obligations, and that the solution is not more taxes, and we can't grow our way out of funding the debt. So I was proposing that we privatize a few of the agencies, such as healthcare, and pull the responsibility away from the government, because obviously they've not been able to. They've been able to create problems but not solve them. And Congress at this point isn't going to deal with any problem. They're just calling them issues. But I'm an accountant, CPA, so the numbers that stood out that I reported the last time is that the government has $176 billion of debt, unfunded debt. Most of that is federal pensions, but also they don't record their liabilities. They only record in a budgetary system, cash in, cash out. And much of that cash in is accelerated because we have to pay estimated income taxes. So they don't even come close to generally accepted accounting principles. And then as far as the solution to this is breaking the gridlock by having a third party. At this point, the two parties don't seem to be able to, they seem to be embracing each other rather than solving problems. So the third party, which I've labeled in my book the American Enterprise Party, would represent the 169 million enterprising Americans that pay all the bills and don't seem to have representation when it comes to budgetary items, policies, future plans with respect to immigration, education, infrastructure. All of those are debatable items between the two parties, but when it comes to actually solving those problems, it comes back to American enterprise. So why wouldn't we have representation for that facet of our society? It really brings capitalism and socialism together, because in enterprise, capital funds the enterprise, and the employees, the social part of it, are the ones that make it go. So the proposal is that we have a third party. The third party wouldn't have to have a majority. They wouldn't have to have the presidency. All they need are 8 seats in the Senate and 20 seats in the House, and they're the swing vote on everything. So all of a sudden, we don't just depend on the left and the right to decide where they're going to lean, either extremes, or not propose solutions. And right now, all they do is pass bills. I mean, we have 40,000 bills across the country being passed each year. Each takes away our freedoms. And I'm suggesting that the Enterprise Party, when it comes into the equation, that they had for every bill that's passed, they have to take 10 laws off the books. Right now, there are some 2 million laws on the books at the local and state level and federal level, and most of which many of us don't even know about or have forgotten about. Examples are, we have to have 25% cherries in a cherry pie, or you can't save rainwater, or you can't smoke in church, or you can't this and you can't that. All of that has to be analyzed and taken off the books so we can get back to business.
Well, Dan,
so that's kind of where I am with the food.
Well, Jerry, I'm going to let our co-hosts ask you some questions here. Dan, let's start with you. Listening to all this, what do you make of what Jerry is saying here?
I find it interesting, perhaps Pollyannish, but that's okay. I've been accused of being Pollyannish many times in my life. But let me deal with some hard facts. We have 24 candidates for the Democratic nomination for president. And I think I would be fair to say that virtually all of them support federalization of health care, to make to go further than Obamacare, to literally have the central government take over health care in the United States, eliminate all private health care, and everything is single payer done by the government. So that's somewhat in contradiction of what you're talking about, and yet there seems to be some degree of popularity among the voters for nationalized health care. And
No,
huge
I'm not. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
No, I'm not saying you're for it. I'm saying we've got a political difference between the Republicans and the Democrats, what I consider to be a huge difference, and that is the Democrats want to nationalize health care, single payer, no private, the government runs it. It's going to take over 16, depending on how you count, 16 to 20% of the economy, and you're not going to have any choices. That's a huge increase in the bureaucracy and the administrative expense to administer that bureaucracy is going to add more to the deficit in the country. So
no, you're absolutely correct.
Yeah. So I hear that the polling data talking about people are very interested in universal health care, yet we do a very poor job of communicating what it costs or what it means. And we are being lulled to sleep by the wonderful stories about British healthcare and Canadian healthcare and all these single-payer healthcare nations. What a wonderful job they do for their sick and injured. Yet I just have a friend down here where I live in Southwest Florida, and he's a Canadian, and he came to the States because hip replacement is an optional surgery in Canada, and it takes four years to get it done. And he got it done in 4 months here. But that's one thing. The other thing about the Freedom Party, interesting idea. But I have grave concerns that the Freedom Party, as you described it,
that's Enterprise, not Freedom.
It's Enterprise Party, excuse me. The Enterprise Party doesn't solve the problem because of the rest of the people that will be there. I think that to try and create a viable third party in this environment at this time of our country is second to an Article 5 convention, where we throw them all out, everybody, and we start over again. Because just bringing 20 people into the House and 8 in the Senate doesn't deal with the other 420 in the House and the other 92 in the Senate, which, while they may have some control as a minority party, that doesn't change the bureaucracy, doesn't change what's going on. And I think we've reached a point where the American people have really given up on trying to really solve the problem, trying to fix what's already so severely broken that you can't fix it. You need to just start over and throw it away and go back to the original Constitution and let's start again and get rid of all of the crap.
Okay, you got two things there that you brought up. First of all, my background is healthcare. I'm a CPA. I spent 50 years of my life in the financial part of healthcare, going from being with Arthur Andersen and rolling out Medicare to being with accounting firms where our hospital clients were consulted with, and we tried to get them organized and economize. And then I had my own accounting firm and specialized in long-term care. And then we owned 3 nursing homes, trying to implement what I would call the enterprise model of healthcare. Medicare for all is Medicare for none. We can't even afford Medicare for the people that are on it. The government denies claims. You don't know what you don't know. I spent 20 years of my business fighting the government, getting them to pay nursing homes for more than 20 days stay so we could restore people and get them back home. So the government's not paying what they're really obligated to pay according to the rules and regulations. So to say that we're going to cover everyone, and we spend $140 billion right now, you take 10 times that, you've got 14 billion a year in Medicare for all, and the revenue stream isn't sufficient to cover even the current obligation for baby boomers. 77 million people from 1964 to 1945 to 1964 represent something that hasn't even been factored into the budget process. They are not healthy. They are not internalizing the responsibility for their health. It's all externalized because of group plans, employer plans, and the escalating costs of care and pharmaceuticals. In our nursing homes, one of the major problems was overdosing, called polypharmacy for the elderly. We have doctors with phone orders. They don't even see the patient, passing 8 billion pills a year in nursing homes. Fentanyl, oxycodone, hydrocodone, you name it. And what we did with the 3 that we were trying to set up a model that would restore people was to try to reduce the medications of our new admissions. And when we were able to succeed with that, they got more functional, and more we could restore and they could go home. So no, I'm for privatizing healthcare, getting it away from the monopsony. The monopsony is a one-buyer market. It destroys competition. There's no accountability. The providers are paid on input data. They're paid on diagnosis. They're paid on prescriptions. They're paid on encounters. None of the healthcare providers are accountable for an outcome. They can't even define where they don't want to define one. So healthcare at this point is the country's biggest problem. And the solutions I proposed in my book, I believe, are a step towards that.
Yeah, the thing that I listen to these Democratic candidates, and they want to do Medicare free for all. Medicare free. So where is the money going to come from? And when I first started hearing that, I remember when Lyndon Johnson was president, and there's this wonderful story about Lyndon Johnson and John Tower, who was a Texas senator. And when Lyndon Johnson was proposing the war on poverty, he told the Congress that it would cost X amount of millions of dollars the first year. John